Hello again, everyone. I wanted to give a little bit of an update in my transcription of books journey. For those of you that have been watching my channel for a while, you have seen that I did a whole series based on Watership Down and a couple of books that are based on Watership Down or somehow fed into that book. I will put a link below to the latest video that I did on that series. That series is complete. There are no more books that I plan to transcribe related to Watership Down, but I have been looking for a new book. And I was looking through my books and I decided to start with this, The Odyssey by Homer. And this is actually a book that I've never been through in its entirety. And this book is actually from when I was a kid. I was really into Greek and Roman myths back in the day when I was little. And this is a book that I got when I was really, really young. I was kind of, I was reading above my grade level pretty early. I was a very avid reader. So this may have been, 7 or 8, I think I got this. But it was a little too dense for me as a kid. And now that I'm reading it again, I have discovered that I'm not sure if I will get through it this time either. It is dense. It's written in sort of an old style of writing. Well, obviously the story is very, very old, but it's written very formally, I think is what I would call it. And, it's like, oh, Zeus, mighty ruler of men, you are the greatest. And then it just goes on and on about Zeus until it finally gets to the point of what the person's trying to talk to Zeus about. And I just don't know. I just don't know if I have the patience to get through, because there's a lot of exposition that, all these Greek and Roman myths have been told in many, many forms in movies and other books. So a lot of the stories, or the characters at the very least, are very familiar. So I feel like there doesn't need to be all this setup, and there is. So, so that's that. But I'm not sure if I will continue with this. I have to really think about it and think about what book I might like to do instead. And then what am I going to do with the portion of the book that I've already written out. But I have learned some things just based on doing the transcription of this book, because I decided to try some new things, new paper, new size, etc. So I'm going to put this off to the side, and the rest of this video is going to be talking about the portion of the book that I've already transcribed in here, and kind of going over some of my takeaways and what I might change for the future when I do this again. So first off, this is a Speckled Fawns B6 size, and this is the chatelaine model, which has this little strap in the front and all of that, and it has a zippered pocket in the back. It's a really nice traveler's notebook. This was the first one of this style that I purchased from them quite a while ago, and it looks like they are making them again. So I will put a link to the website below. Their availability may vary, but because it's really just a one-person show for that company. So I'll put a link, and you can see if they have any products available. So I did try B6 for this project instead of A5. All of the other ones that I've transcribed, all the other books that I've used are A5. And they were also one version or another of Timoe River paper. But this is Cosmo Air Light paper, and it is from Etsy, and it's the Etsy shop Danica something. There's a number, but I can't remember the number. But I will put a link to that Etsy shop as well. And I've since seen A5 size of these notebooks at other sellers, so so just keep an eye out for different availability. So I'll tell you what I liked about this notebook and what I didn't like about this notebook. So the first thing that I didn't like is the size. I think that B6 is just too small for a transcription project. I felt very cramped most of the time, and I had to prop up my hand here at the bottom when I was writing, because the page cutoff is sooner than it is on an A5, so I felt like I had to prop up my hand a lot to write towards the bottom of the page. The line spacing, so this is a dot grid of the Cosmo Air Light paper, which I like, but the dot grid on this B6 size is pretty small. I didn't think you could see it down there, but it's fairly small, and it's just a little too small for my handwriting. I just like a little bit more room than this. I think even if it was just like a hair, I probably could still deal with the B6 size, but it's just a hair too small. The little dot grids are too small for me. This paper I've discovered is kind of hit or miss depending on the pens you're using. I find that it works better with broader nibbed pens, and given the smaller spacing of the grids here, that just wasn't working very well in this particular notebook. But it's still a great paper, I think, but I think also for longer writing, I was really noticing that my pen would sink into the page a little bit more than I realized when I was just doing short writing on this paper. So I think, you know, although I think this is perfectly acceptable, I think this is still going to be in the rotation, this particular type of paper, for journaling and maybe even another transcription project just with a bigger page size. A5 is kind of what I like for that. But I don't think it's my favorite replacement for Tomoe River paper. I do like a paper with a coating on it. And this may be coated, but it definitely has a sinking feeling when I write. It doesn't necessarily have a lot of drag, but sometimes if my fountain pen nib is a little bit drier, I do find that there starts to be a little bit of drag. But for the most part, no. So with the formatting here, I used, for all the titles and chapter names, I used this nib by Franklin Christoph, which is a pretty large music nib. And I really liked doing that in my latest transcription project that I did, because I thought that it kind of unified the book and made things look really nice with the block lettering that I could get with that nib. But again, the line spacing on this B6 size paper was just a little bit tough to work with there. And yeah, as you can see, I mean, it even looks a little cramped on the page. I didn't want to leave one row on the side because then I thought, you know, I'm not going to have a lot of page space here. So I went out to the outer edges pretty much on both sides, and that just made it feel a little cramped. And then I, you know, also went all the way down to the bottom. I only left this top row. And I did try, I don't think I did this throughout. Yeah, I left the paragraph spacing just one paragraph after another. I didn't leave any spaces in between like I did here. This was sort of the preamble by the editor. And this was actually a very interesting experiment. So I have this Sailor 1911 pen, which I took the nib out of and put in a different pen because I've been playing around a lot with Flexible Nib Factory's housing, where you can put a variety of different Japanese brand pen nibs in like a Yovo or a Bach pen, or a pen that takes those nibs. And I did that with the nib that was in this 1911 body, this 1911 large body, because it was just a plain black body, and, you know, I kind of wanted to mix it up and put it in a different pen. So I did that, and I tried to find any other nibs that would fit in the Sailor 1911 body, and I couldn't find any in my collection that would fit, but I ended up, and I'll probably show this pen at some point. I don't know if it'll end up being a permanent hack the way it is, just because I did have some flow issues with it, especially you could see here at the beginning, and here I had to prime the nib twice through fairly short writing. But what I did was I took, I believe it was a Pen BBS feed, and I cut off the bottom of the feed to make it fit where the Sailor feed would be, because you can't get replacement feeds for Sailor. I'm very frustrated by that. I mean, it seems like you should be able to get a replacement feed for your pen, like if something happens to your feed or whatever. I mean, yeah, I probably had a non-authorized use of it, which is why they probably won't give me one. I have not inquired, but so I cut off the bottom of the feed so that it would fit. And then I put this size 6 Goulet 1.1 stub in here. And at first it wrote fine, but I had not done any longer writing with it. But here it seems like there is a bit of a flow issue. And this is a pretty wet ink. This is Robert Oster Sedona Red. Robert Oster tends to go either way. They can be a little dry or a little wet. This one seems to run a little wet, but it did have some flow issues. And I wonder if it's if it's how because I am using a Sailor converter to fit into the bottom, because I didn't screw out the nib housing, or I don't think I could on the Sailor 1911 pen, so the housing is still there. So, and that accommodates the Sailor converter. This might be a little abstract to just kind of hear about it, so I will try to show this on the channel at some point. But yeah, so I don't know if I call this a failed experiment or not, with sort of a Franken-pen experiment, but we'll see how it goes. This was another similar Franken-pen experiment. This is a Pilot Custom Heritage Body 912. I had a Pilot FA flexible nib in this, and I did the same thing. With a flexible nib factory housing, I put it in a different pen, and but I still had the feed for this one, so it was a little bit easier to replace. I put a size 5 broad stub nib in here, and it actually works pretty well. I didn't have any flow issues. It's probably because I didn't modify the feed in any way, but it seems to write great without any problems. Let's see what we have here. I was trying to do a little bit of longer writing so that I could really test these pens out. Let's see. Oh, so this is oh, I love this nib. This is from the Nib Grinder. It's a custom grind. It is a micro architect nib. So it basically started as a fine and then went down essentially to an extra fine architect, and I love it. I absolutely love it. It worked really well on this paper, even though it is a fine, which is interesting. So I basically put a little up arrow when I liked how the ink worked on the paper, and I put a little down arrow when I didn't like it. I have very few down arrows, actually. So, but this is a particularly lovely nib that I really, really like. And let's see, which one was this? This is, oh, so this is a similar grind from Nib Grinder. It is a fine architect nib. And I really like that one as well. I think that I have found that actually fine architects are one of my favorite nib styles. And you know, you don't necessarily know that until you try a bunch of things. So I did start out with finer nibs, and part of that was because of the line spacing. And with the finer nibs, I think this line spacing was fine. I actually had an extra fine in this Benu Minima, but I changed it out for the fine, and I like that much better in this pen. The extra fine was just a little too fine, especially in that pen for whatever reason. But it's lovely. Love that. And then here, so here I have a medium nib, and even medium, I did not like the way this pen felt on this paper. Which is interesting, because I had said before that I thought broader nibs felt better on this paper, but so far I've had fine nibs and they were great, and this one was not so great. I think, I'm not sure what's going on, but I have experienced this with this particular Penlux nib. It's obviously on a different pen, but it has a strange feel. I'm wondering if it's how it was tuned. Some papers it writes really lovely on, and others it doesn't. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But I didn't like that one very much. And part of it was I felt cramped, and part of it was I just didn't like the feel of that nib on the paper. And again, I went with a little bit of a broader nib here. Let's see, what is this one? This is a 0.6 stub nib from Birmingham Pen Company. I believe they are made by Nemesine, who's no longer in business, but they still have a stock of pens at Birmingham. I love this nib. This nib actually felt really great on this paper, but I did start to feel like the line spacing was a little small. And then let's see. Oh, so this was interesting too. So actually, I'll get out that pen and show it to you. So this is by River City Pen Company. It is actually a little travel size pen. And I have marked with Sharpie on washi tape what nib I have in here. But this nib also did not feel that great. And this is a fine. So, I mean, part of it could be the inks too, the differences in inks. But the flow on this, like I felt like I was running out of ink, but I had plenty of ink. And this is from a cartridge. So I'm wondering if, I feel like whenever I use cartridge pens that have these, especially the little cartridges, the flow is just not as good, in my opinion, as it is from a converter or from a dropper filled pen. I'm very tempted to perhaps dropper fill this pen, even though I cannot see through the pen. I don't like to do that for pens that are not demonstrators, because then I can't see the ink level. It's actually a very nice pen. It's hand turned, but yet still a pocket pen, which is kind of cool. But I'm thinking, just to get a better ink flow, that I might dropper fill it. And this fine Esterbrook nib, either way, didn't feel that great on this paper. So we'll see what's up with that. This one, oh yeah, I guess I had more than I thought that I didn't particularly like. So this is a vintage Parker dual fold nib that I have put in a different pen. And it runs kind of dry, and I think that might be why I didn't like the feel of it here. The size was actually okay for this line spacing, but I didn't like how it felt. I didn't feel like the ink was running out or anything. It just didn't feel good. It felt, like there was too much drag. This is the only one though that I felt like there was drag with the paper, at least that I can remember. And this one was great, actually. This is a Bach Bold Cursive Smooth Italic that I have on my Penlux Grand. And it was lovely on this paper. And the line spacing, actually, crazy enough, even though it's a broad, didn't seem that crazy small. Maybe because it's a cursive italic, it didn't feel too weird. And then this is the last one I have here. And actually, this pen felt amazing on this paper, and I didn't even tell you what it is. So I'm basically going to show off this pen now. So I've shown this Visconti Homo Sapiens Dark Age on the channel before. This was one of my Grail pens that I finally got, and I did have I don't have any issues with the pen itself, but I had issues with the nib smith where I got it. It took forever to get, basically, and then the wrong nib ended up on it. I wanted the palladium nib, and he sent me the 18 karat gold nib, which is a lovely nib, I must say. And I had it ground, and the grinding was for free and everything. So to a certain extent, I can't complain all that much, but I still really, really, really wanted to try the palladium nib. So I did, in fact, obtain a palladium nib. I really, really lucked out with this one. I found it on Pen Realm, just as sort of random. He was selling just the nib unit in palladium, but it isn't black, so it doesn't match, but I still love this nib. It's a medium. I had wanted to get a fine in the palladium, but because it was so discounted from what I would get it for anywhere else if I ever found it, I got this, and I got it, and it's tuned perfectly. I wonder if Kirk Spear at Pen Realm did in fact tune this before posting it, because it's lovely. It works great. There's nothing done to it. It's no grind. It just is beautiful. The ink that I have in here, which is Lennon Toolbar Indigo Tegan, works wonderfully, and you can see, you could get all this really nice shading effect. I love, 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 love this nib, which kind of reinforces, yes, at everything that I'd heard about palladium nibs. I knew I would like it, and in fact, I did. So this was lovely. I was actually going to continue on with this nib, but you know, something came up and I had to do something else. And then now that it's been a little bit of a break, I'm wondering if I want to go on, because the line spacing was a little tight for this nib, because even though this is a medium, it is a fairly broad medium. But the feel of this nib on this paper is amazing. So I think what I might do is pick a different book first off, and then just, you know, for this notebook, I might end up just cutting out these pages, using them in collage or mixed media or something. The ink will bleed, and it's not always light fast with fountain pen inks. So if I use it for that, I have to know that that's the caveat that I'm dealing with. But I don't want to just have this go to waste. I might just use it as a base layer or something where there's going to be stuff over it, and it's not necessarily going to be damaging to a mixed media piece by having the ink fade or whatever. So that's what I might do with that. And then I might go with the A5 size Tomoe River paper, or sorry, I keep calling it Tomoe River paper, with the Cosmo Air light paper, and see how I like that line spacing. And it's kind of a shame, because I did think it was a very nice setup in this little traveler's notebook. I really liked the feel of this, that I could carry it around, and it was very portable. But it just is too cramped, and that combined with really just not feeling it with this book, you know, if I'm going to be spending time doing this kind of thing, I want it to be an enjoyable experience, like it was with all of my Watership Down books. And I did want to just talk briefly about how I set this up at my desk to transcribe. So basically, when I am not doing it, I close this book, close the regular book, and put them both in this little book stand here. This book stand is, I believe it is from High Tide. Oh, it's kind of dusty. Very dusty. I had it on the floor, so that's why. The floor picks up all kinds of dust, especially from this carpet I have here. But so I'll just keep it there and then put it off to the side somewhere. And then when I want to transcribe, I put the book here. And this wasn't really holding this book very well either, so that was a little frustrating. But I have that up, and then I have this open on my desk, and I just write while this is open. And that's been working really well. And I do actually quite like this book stand. Maybe not for flimsy paperbacks that are several decades old, but it's great for hardbacks especially, and for larger paperback books from what I've used it for already. All right, well, I just thought I would mention that, since that's kind of my setup when I'm doing these transcription projects. And I wanted to give you an update on how it's going. But basically for now, I think I'm going to stop in this setup, start something new, start a new book. Whether I'll ever get through Homer's Odyssey, maybe not. But, you know, it's still a very sentimental book to me to have this, and remember, you know, how excited I was about this. I really liked the front cover, and the picture there just made me think about, you know, how much I really liked Greek and Roman myths and all that kind of stuff. I was really into a lot of the stop motion. These were all old by the time I saw them, but I was really into sort of like the old Harryhausen stop motion movies, Jason and the Argonauts, and I think what's the one with Perseus and the flying horse? But anyway, it's escaping me right now. But there was a movie that had come out at that point in time when I was really young and really liked, and it was also done, I think, at least partially with stop motion. But anyway, I loved that stuff. And then later on, that was sort of what I was thinking about when I wanted to get into stage set design. I didn't end up doing that. Now I'm a lawyer, but I do a lot of art in my spare time, so that's nice. But anyway, that is all I had for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask below, and I'll get to it when I can, or them when I can. And feel free to subscribe to keep track of future videos on my channel. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. I hope to see you next time, but in the meantime, have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.